gosh, I think pole vaulting has taught me like every lesson that I've probably learned in my life for the most part. I mean, in one way or another, it's like I've learned first and foremost how to apply myself completely to something and get something out of it. I think that's kind of obviously the first thing is just how to follow my dreams and my passions and leave nothing on the table.
Perfect. We're here with episode 4 of the One More Jump podcast. We've got a special guest for you guys today, and I'm going to try to do my best with some of these statistics. If I get them wrong, we'll correct them after the fact. This special guest, if you can't see him, if you're not watching the YouTube channel, is a graduate of Indiana University with a collegiate PR of 5.50 meters in the pole vault. He is a Big Ten champion. He is a 4-time Division I All-American. He's a 14-time USATF National Championships qualifier. That's insane. 2016 Olympic Trials finalist. He's got an all-time pole vault PR of 5 meters, 5.68 meters. He's still actively pole vaulting. He's a family man, a dad, a coach of the vertical jumps, horizontal jumps at University of Northern Iowa, and he hails from San Diego, California. We've got our guest, Jeff Coover. Wait for it.
Hey, baby, the Coov Dawg. Do people call you the Coov Dawg?
Yeah, actually, probably there are some people that do call me that.
I thought I was making that up.
No, I don't think you're first. I don't think you're first to that party.
I was like, okay, I swear I've heard somebody call him Coov Dawg before, but then I was like, maybe I'm just making that up because it just sounds cool. But so you're saying that?
I think pretty much everybody calls me Coov or Coover, Coov or Coover, mostly Coov, and then they'll put whatever they want on the end, Coov man, Coov dog, Coov baby, whatever, you know. So
I didn't know if we were at the point where I could call you Coov. Like I feel like that's next.
Oh, you're there. Next level. We're all good there. Yeah. Any winder is fair game. All 40 boys.
That's good. I remember, I guess to kick this off with a funny story. You and Jake had competed, on and off for a while for, I don't know, maybe like a decade or so. And I remember one day I messaged you on Facebook when Facebook was still, I guess, the bee's knees for all modes of communication. And I just said, hey, Jeff, Josh Winder here. I just thought I'd let you know that, I like pole vaulting and I like Fender Telecasters. And then you were like, I love those things too. And that was the start of the relationship with at least Josh Winder and Jeff Coover. But Jake, I'm curious, and Jeff, didn't you guys have a history of competing back in, was it high school?
Not high school.
Yeah, we did. You have a crazy memory though.
I don't remember. Did you jump at that Junior USA's in like 05 or 06? One of those?
Yeah, because we were talking the other day and you said that you had jumped 16.6. This is crazy, Josh. He went from, tell me if I'm wrong, 14.6 as a junior to 16.6 as a senior in high school.
Yeah.
So it was, our senior year, 06.
Yeah. So 06 and Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Is that where it was?
I was at that one. Indiana State or what was it was.
No, you're talking about IUPUI. No, this was at IUPUI that I'm talking about in 06. Okay. So I actually competed in 05 also at juniors. That was actually my senior year of high school. And that was a goal at Home Depot Center.
Carson, California. I was there too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So our story goes back 15 years.
Yeah, it was like me, you, Scott Roth,
Scott Finley, Dustin DeLeo, Mitch Greeley, probably
was Jordan Scott. Jordan
yeah.
Scott, yeah.
God, probably others. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was man,
long time.
That was fun though, man. That was the first time I remember, like, one thing stands out to me. I think I made one bar that day. The opening height was 15.6, which to me at that time, I was like, dude, 15.6. Like, I was a junior at that time. And I was like, dang, this is legit. I just want to make 15.6, you know? And so I remember making that bar and being like, all right, I'm happy I made that. But then the second thing, it was my first time in Cali, and I saw the record store that Snoop Dogg filmed that music video on, like, I forget what song it was, but he filmed a music video on top of this record store. And I was driving past like, dude, that's crazy. I was,
if Jake accomplished anything on that USATF trip, it was like, hey, I may have vaulted 15.6, or even if I no heighted, I still got to see that place where Snoop Dogg's record was recorded.
Yeah,
I love that.
My meet was a little different that time. I stayed, my friend's mom had a place in I don't remember where in LA, not in Glendale, but in Pasadena or something. And so we stayed there the night before the meet, and she undercooked some chicken and we both got food poisoning. So I was pole vaulting the next day and he was high jumping. He got it worse than I did, but we were both up all night. And I mean, it was crazy, but I jumped. I was the same as you, where 15.6 was like high. And I think what saved me was that we had to start high. And I think I made 2 bars. So I think I made 475 and 490, and then went out at 5 meters or 505. And but that was good meat for me at the time. And I remember being on my small poles because I had like. Did I? Yeah, I made 2 bars. I remember because I was trying. Yeah,
that's what you're trying to say. Is that
there's gonna be some back and forth between Jeff Coover and some of this, I think.
Dude, Coover, he straight up, man. Like him and I, we were like, I don't know, somewhat in the same realm for a little bit. But then there was just a point, Jeff, you and I were talking about this the other day, like where you just kind of crossed over a barrier. Like there's like a threshold in elite pole vaulting where it's like, if you cross over that threshold, then you get to go to like a new level of elite pole vaulting. And I never really got to that threshold. The closest I ever came was that year in 2013 at US Indoors, where I got second and I jumped 55. And you and I both, I didn't know this, but you and I both PR'd, like a post-collegiate PR, or no, all-time PR. It was our first time since college. And we had been training for like 2 or 3 years after college. So we both PR'd on that day. And anyway, so I got to that level. But then, I don't know, it just seemed like you continued to, just kind of progress. And I don't know what I would attribute that to, because like, I know there was some lifestyle things like in my life that happened. I got married, and then we bought a house, and in order to do that, you gotta, have a job. And I started teaching, and I think that there's no excuse, but I think that kind of, I don't know. It was weird. Like it was like a crossroads in my life. And then you continued to go on and do really well. And and now, listen to this, Josh. He has a dad PR of 5 meters 52.
That's
dude, he jumped
impressive.
550 as a dad.
As a dad and a 30-year-old. So those are like.
You were 32?
I'm 32 now. Yeah. So I was 31 when I jumped 51, and then I jumped. Yeah, and then that's or 52. Sorry,
Goodness.
And 31 and So
dude, that 550 plus bar is insane. And whenever I think of like Jeff Coover, I think of like you just like busting it in your freaking garage or whatever the heck that space is, where you've always got like a minimum of like what looks like 300 plus pounds on, and you're just doing these step ups, these squats, these deep squats. And I'm like, I can't even get out of bed sometimes to go run a couple miles. And this guy's got 300 plus pounds on his back and then a baby and a wife.
If it helps you at all, I couldn't get out of bed and run a few miles either. So.
I guess it's two different sports. I think that segues a good question though. Like, we got so many questions and I want to kind of use these to help facilitate this thing, because like some of these were even better than what Jake and I could come up with. We're not the most clever people in the world, but these people on Instagram are. And one question that sticks out to me that I don't know if I'm gonna keep naming all the people that put these up, because I'm gonna get all these tags wrong. But one person said, "You have a lot of pro athlete friends. What sets you and them apart from the other crowd?"
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. It's hard to quantify, but I mean, I guess the one thing that I will say that I can attribute to most of the people in my life that I've looked up to, athletically, and the people I look up to the most in the athletic world aren't always the ones that have achieved the most, but the people that I look up to and that I think bring something to the table that everybody can learn from are the ones that have found the thing that they love to do the most and just go do that. And that, isn't to say that the person that has the I always look at it a little different than everybody else. Like, I have the capability for some reason, like I love training and I love lifting and sprinting and jumping in practice and by myself. I've trained by myself for 8 years or something. So I think that the people that I have looked up to and that I'm friends with that are professionals in whatever they do are the ones that have the ability to go out there and apply themselves to what they love every day and kind of never back down. And that's why I think, the guys that we have specifically in the pole vault world, I'll name some others. I was at one point, and I'm still kind of friendly with a girl named Lindsey Vaughn, who was a downhill skier. We were at the Olympic Training Center at the same time, and when she was at the Olympic Training Center doing her off-season training, we were sort of in season, and she was friendly toward me, and I got to pick her brain a little bit and watch her train a lot, and that, I think, is the most dedicated athlete I've ever been around in my life. That Lindsay is the hardest working, I think the hardest working person, definitely in the sports world that I've ever personally been around. And I think that's that's what she could attribute to her long-term success as, probably the greatest men's or women's downhill skier of all time. She just had this ability. I'd go to breakfast at the Olympic Training Center at 7:30 and she'd roll in after a 2-hour session. And then she'd be like, all right, afternoon session, we're going to play tennis for an hour. And then after that, we're going to go lift. And it's just like, it was crazy. So, but I don't think that the thing that I think that I'm trying to get at is that I don't think that those people are forcing themselves to do it. I've never felt like I'm making myself do it. I've never felt like I have to go to the track. I have to go lift weights. It's like, it's what I love to do. It's what I enjoy. It's what I, want to do with my little bit of free time. And I think that Lindsay was the same way. I think that the guys that we have right now, and specifically in the pole vault world, are totally like that. I mean, Renault is the one that probably is the most accessible to me. And I can tell you for certain, and I have stories about this, but if there's an open pit and Renault doesn't have anything to do for 2 hours, he wants to go pole vault. Like it's just what he wants to do. I mean, that guy bothered me every year that he came to Reno. He was bothering me on Saturday to be like, let's go find an open pit here in Reno and go pole vault. And I'm just like, dude, what is wrong with you, man? Like, you took 20 jumps last night and you jumped 590, and then today at 11 a.m. you want to go pole vault. I'm like, this is crazy. So
that's just like Luke. Luke is the same way. Jake and I know that for sure, because we were the ones who were watching it. We'd run these pole vault camps in Naperville, Illinois, and Luke would be, 6, 7, 8 years old, and he'd be setting up hurdles on the pit with bungees and crossbars on the pit we're not using, and he'd just take hundreds of vaults as a little kid. And then still to this day, he's Jake's got his Rise facility, and that seems like Luke's just constantly there because
he's always over there.
He just loves
always
the pole vault,
texts
to
me
be
like,
around
hey,
it.
I want to go.
I think that's what it's all about. And I don't think that you can force it. I don't think you can make it. That's what I'm kind of trying to say is like, it's not like any of these people are, just better at like waking up and being like, screw it. Like, I don't want to, but I'm going to do it. It's just that they found the thing they're passionate about, and they're exhausting all options to do it as much as possible. And I think for me, like, pole vaulting is definitely there on that list, but it's just training and improvement, and that's why I've found sort of my niche and just in training really hard, like you said, just spending time in my little sanctuary in my garage and learning how to sprint faster and all that sort of stuff. I think that's kind of been where I've found a little bit of an advantage, and that's what I love, and I just try not to let too much get in the way of that. And, it's felt pretty easy to me. I mean, obviously it's different now I'm married. I have a 7-month-old baby. So I give myself 1 hour every day. And that's my hour to do whatever. So, sometimes that hour, on rest days is just spent, just hanging out with the family, which I'm pretty much doing. We're all doing all the time right now. But, right. But it used to be, back in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, those sessions were longer and more involved and all that. And now I've kind of found a way to really boil it down. And actually I'm crazy about keeping data. Am I way off topic? I'm way off topic.
No,
dude, you're fine, man. One thing that I would want to interject though is like the question was like we were talking about. They asked, why do you have so many friends? So do you think people see that in you? Like how you were talking about that skier and you were like, and I'm sorry, I'm not familia with her.
Which by the way, she's a Minnesota.
I do not follow sports.
She's like the face of Minnesota. Just so you know, she's Burnsville.
I feel,
Minnesota. Yeah. Anyways, go for it.
I apologize to her. I should follow sports a lot better. I'm a PE teacher and I don't follow sports, man.
No, that's so okay. Anyway. The only thing that's important is she's the best ever. And anyway, go on.
Yeah, so she's the best ever, and you saw that like she, so she obviously expressed like that she, was interested in what you do and things like that. So so do you think people see that in you too, like that drive, and that's why maybe people are attracted to you? Like, because they were talking about, you have a lot of friends and you're very, very well connected. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, from an outside perspective, I see two things causing that on your end. I see, number one, I see a drive and a passion, and people who have that same drive and passion can relate to it. So they want to be around you. But then number two is you're nice and you're kind and you are easy to talk to. And so those are from my perspective. So do you think that people see that in you too, and they can relate to it?
Maybe. I mean, that might be the case. I think, obviously like-minded people sort of are more likely to become friends with one another. And that might be the case. I guess I can't really extrapolate that, but I mean, I always thought that like I became, somewhat well-connected with a lot of people, a lot higher than me on the, scale of elite athlete or whatever, because anytime I get around somebody like that, I just want to learn. So in any sport, in anything, I just want to learn what they're doing and what's setting them apart, how they're thinking, what they're motivated by. And maybe the fact that I'm easy to talk to and I'm kind and that I'm also an athlete helps, but it's mostly like I just bug the heck out of Renault and all these guys and whoever I could find at the Olympic Training Center, for sure in whatever sport or whatever event on track and field. I spent a lot of time when I was there around a guy named Andreas Torkildsen, who was a javelin thrower at the time, probably the second best javelin thrower of all time, and just tried to soak in everything I could find from him. And Brad Walker was training there, and I was like living in his house, even though I was living on campus. I was bugging the heck out of him, being like, hey, I'm bringing over dinner. Like, let's just sit and talk about training and pole vault and life and whatever. And I learned so much that way, I think it's just that I really genuinely feel like everybody in the world has something they can teach me. And super elite athletes happen to have a lot that they can teach me about things that I'm incredibly interested in, and that, make me a better athlete and a better coach. So
how much of that teaching and that knowledge you're trying to gain is outside of like physical movement and exercise? Because I think you have like a tried and true approach to training, and I absolutely love it. I love that you just like go ham on your freaking sprints, on your weights. You grip high on big sticks, vault high, like that. That's so awesome. But like whenever you go and you sit with Renault or Brad Walker or Lindsey Vonn or any of these athletes, are you trying to pick at, because you can't necessarily contradict what has worked for you and got you over to, an 18.7 bar. Like, are you picking up on mental cues? Are you picking up on nutrition? What kind of things are you trying to pick up on?
Yeah, no, for sure. All of it. I mean, Brad taught me crazy amounts about nutrition. And he's if he would have chosen that path, he would have been a great sports psychologist. He's in chiropractic school now, but, yeah, no, everything, all of it, for sure. I mean, with Lindsay, it was like when I had time to talk to her and really be in her head, I was just trying to get mental cues and that, I guess I would say that's one thing that I've noticed with the best athletes in the world, is that they all have a real belief that they're better than everybody else. I don't know if that sounds silly or something, but it's not like I talked to, I feel like I keep like name dropping Lindsey Vonn right now, because we really were only, I really learned a lot.
Maybe you could be our segue to get her on here. She's a savage, man. She's insane.
Yeah. So, but the thing that I learned from her was, she told me this one time, and I don't think that she would even remember talking about it. Not that but was that, there were times in her career where she's coming back off injury or whatever, and she would get in the gate, and before she got in the gate, she kind of had a plan with her team to, okay, like if I do this, this, and this, like I can be on the podium, that's pretty good. Like then we'll go to the next thing and we'll just kind of steamroll. And then she said, but then when I get in the gate, I just realize, oh, I'm better than everybody else at this. Like I'm better than everybody else.
Feeling.
So here we go, and I think
that's a good feeling right there.
I think that's how Mondo feels right now. And I think that's how Bolt felt yeah. So I think that's something though, like you really can't fake that though, like, no,
no matter how hard I try, I can't fake that feeling, but there are things I would say that there are things in everyone's life. There's something that you can feel that way about. Like for me,
exactly.
Like, and I am not trying to toot my own horn at all, because I don't need to be doing that. There's not a lot to toot it about. but I would say, I would almost go so far to say that I almost feel like I'm in that zone and in that area of my brain where I'm like, I feel like I'm good at this whenever I'm coaching the kids at my club. Like I feel like there's like a deep sensation of like, whoa, that adjustment I just made really made a difference. And then like you just start to be like, I feel like I might be pretty good at this. Like, and then that ball starts to roll and roll and roll. So, some people that feeling comes from, downhill skiing or running the 100 meters, like you saying, or jumping 22 feet in the air, like Mondo, but like other people, like I feel there is that space for everyone, and it doesn't have to be athletics. It can be in whatever. And for a long time in my pole vaulting career, and I'm going to be just a little bit vulnerable here, I really tried to convince myself that I knew that I was going to make it to that next level. I know I can make it to the, on a US team. I know I can do it. And I tried really hard to convince myself of that deep belief. I really tried, but it just wasn't really there. If I really sat down and I thought about it and I was honest with myself, I would be like, you're good. You're pretty good at this, but it's just, I don't have that deep rooted belief like you're talking about. But the cool thing is if you stay in the game and you keep moving forward in life, you will find that area that you do feel like that. And once you do, like for a long time, I felt very almost depressed after I was done pole vaulting, because I was like, dude, I had this goal, I had this goal, I had this goal, and I just didn't accomplish anything, and I was like, dude, looking back on it, that's so silly,
Yeah.
But now I've got this new thing and I'm like, whoa, I don't even care about that anymore, and it's like, whoa, that's cool that I was able to, kind of forget that kind of let down from my pole vaulting career and invest a lot of that, energy and time into something that I really do believe that I could be really, good at. So anyway,
I want to segue
that was a
into
long explanation.
No,
there.
that's fine. That's good. It segued into a question I had pulled up here. A really good one. Couple repeat offenders here. Somebody who just like fired off a bunch of really, really good questions, and she happens to be an Olympian.
Yeah, that's Kelsey. We can say that.
So yeah, no wonder why all these questions are really great. There are also some other ones that we'll segue into, about your life and stuff, but tell us about the pain cave. Did it serve you well? Talk about a low point in your career, something where it's like, this is that shaky moment where I didn't know if I might continue on.
Yeah. So there's two things here. It's a two-parted answer. One is that I'll answer her real question, and two is that I will answer what you just said. So the pain cave is actually something that we would refer to in college when we would do really, really, really hard workouts. And basically, in my mind now, the way that I train and the way that I train our kids, like we would kind of never really do the stuff that we were doing in college. We would do stuff like we would run like a 150, and then we'd do like a set of kettlebell exercises, and then we'd do another 150. We called it, or 200s actually. We called them kettlebell 200s, or we'd run 150s and then do a bunch of med ball and a bunch of bounding, and then run more 150s. And it would be really, really, really hard. Did you get all that? I think I said.
Yeah, no. Your audio's coming through fine.
No, you're good. Your audio's still coming through. Yeah, your audio's fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we would be just like hurting so bad, and we would say that we were in the pain cave. We're deep, dark in the pain cave, just looking around in the cave, and you just gotta keep going down there. And we sort of had that mentality. Kelsey and I went to college together at Indiana, and we sort of just embraced that. And we fully bought into it, and it was like, all right, time to go looking through the pain cave. Turn your headlight on, like and go. And
deep dark depths of pain cave.
Yeah, so it kind of shaped our culture in a buy-in perspective, in the way of, if we're going to do this, we're going to freaking do this. And I think that's what stuck with me the most. Now that I don't really train that way anymore, I still kind of can use some of those ideas of just buying in fully. Like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to freaking go all the way down this thing. So yeah, that stuff still sticks with me today, and I love that mantra. And then also, I mean, definitely something I wanted to talk about is what you brought up, which is just difficult times in the sport. And I think that, Jake and I both had sort of the same upswing out of the bottom of that sort of cycle. 2 years out of college, my first 2 years out of college were really, really hard. I was sort of training in Indiana and then spending some time in the summers and spring at the Olympic Training Center in San Diego also. And I just wasn't jumping well. I was jumping 530 and 535 and 540. And it just was no hiding a lot. And it was really hard time for me. And after 2012, I basically thought maybe I'm going to retire, maybe I'm not. And that was a really hard time for me for sure. So we did a Europe trip in 2012 and it was really fun and everything. And I was kind of like, maybe this is the end, maybe this is the end of pole vaulting. This is going really well. And, or isn't going really well, but I'm having fun on this trip. So maybe this should be the end. And then came home and was just kind of like you said, Jake, when you retired, I was just kind of depressed. I was kind of just like, oh man, like, I don't know, maybe I want to keep doing this. And so I called my buddy, Jacob Pauli, who lives here in Cedar Falls, and asked him if I could move here and train, because he was newly retired and whether he would coach me. And he said yes. And I moved here, and that's kind of the beginning of when things got better for me. And then obviously that all culminated really that fall. I just kind of put my head down, went into the pain cave for sure. Kind of put my head down and disappeared. People were like, hey, you were like, cause Indiana's got all the bells and whistles. And then I was training at the training center too, which is obviously an amazing place to train. And then all of a sudden I kind of fell off the map and I went to Iowa, and it was like, hey man, like, what are you doing? And I was just, that whole fall and winter, I was just kind of like, I'm doing my thing. Like, just leave me alone. Like, give me some time. And I'm just going to kind of try and, whatever. And then it all culminated. I made the USA team, or the USA meet, midway through indoor. And then I went there and jumped 555. And that was my first PR for 2 years basically. And it was just kind of like an arrival moment. And like Jake said, that kind of opened the door for me. From that point forward, it was like, okay, if the conditions are good or the runway is good or whatever, like I'm going to jump 18 feet and then we're just going to kind of go from there. And that didn't always happen, but that was kind of where my mentality was at that point. And that's where it all kind of just started getting a lot better for me.
Do you think it was an initiation?
Yeah, I remember that.
From your end, where you were in this dark time and you were like, dark time is in, deciding whether you wanted to continue to pole vault or not. Was it just like, you know what, I'm going to give this another shot here and I need to change. I need to flip the script. I need a complete breath of fresh air. Let's call up the guitar playing, Jacob Pauli, really, really insane vaulter, by the way. I guess explain, was he somebody you had in mind that you knew could help carry you through that time?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. That's exactly what it was. So it was either retire or do something completely different. And what I had been doing for the years prior, which, had their merit and everything, was I was learning from two guys mostly. One was Brad Walker, and the other guy was a guy named Yu Kim, who was a Korean pole vaulter. And those guys are both incredible pole vaulters.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Brad 604, and then Yu Kim jumped like 568 or something, had the Korean record, and wasn't super fast or anything like that. He was just a really good pole vaulter, and they were all really trying to teach me to catch the ride and get more out of my smaller poles and all this. And I just was having a really hard time with it. It was just not clicking for me. It was just something I'm not really very good at. It's just something I'm not super good at. Some people are really good at that part of it. Yu Kim had such an incredible feel. He was 210 pounds. He could jump 18 feet on like a 14.0, which is like, it's crazy, so small pole, really heavy, but he could, I literally can't jump 5 meters on that pole, and he can jump like 550 plus. And I just couldn't figure it out. So I decided to sort of flip it. And I went to work with Jacob, who jumped 19 feet, weighing 200 pounds. He jumped 19 feet on a 10.8, which is basically one of the biggest poles that anybody's ever planted before. So I kind of flipped it around and went to Jacob, because I thought, you know what, this guy can take the strengths that I already have and teach me to be confident in them and to basically strengthen my strengths. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, that's where we went. We just went toward like, okay, throughout my career, I've said this multiple times, but throughout my career, I always felt like if I put all my energy into, right now I got 2 jumps to go to get myself to a bigger pole, to blow through this one and to get the next one in the pit, I can probably do it. And whatever the pole is, if I'm saying, okay, then in order to make the next bar, the only thing I need to do is to blow through this pole quick and then go to the next pole and get it to vertical, I'm probably going to be capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just kind of went there, and that's been the focus for me ever since. I mean, ever since, like, I've always kept in mind, the need to be a little bit more efficient on the pole. And I've definitely had phases in my career where I've been better. And I think I'm actually really pretty good right now with, getting a little bit more out of the poles and all that. But I think Jacob and I just kind of figured out, and he was good at teaching it because he was good at doing it. I mean, he was really good at doing it, that, being on big poles with big grips, it's one way to make it happen. So like that day in Albuquerque, where we both PR'd, Jake, I think I was on a 12.0, a 5'10", 12.0, probably weighing 195, probably holding 16.3 or something, which at 12.0 is like a 215, probably 210, 215. And then eventually my PR was actually on 11.4, which is like probably a 220. And I was probably holding 16.6. So it's like not that impressive of push-off numbers, but I was only running 9.25 meters a second, 9.2 meters per second, but I could get an 11.4 to go in the pit. So for me, that in my world, that's efficient. It's efficient to turn not that much runway speed into moving a really, really big pole with a high grip. That's efficiency. That's using your energy, just the same as holding 16 feet or holding 15.6 on a little, soft pole and jumping really high. That's efficient too. So
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you brought up a good point. Like, you have to, I think everybody needs to, this is something good for everybody to hear, and especially like young people in their career, especially people who are post-collegians who are trying to make it in like this, elite vaulting world, is you have to, I think, you have to find out what you're good at, and you have to believe in that. Like, if you can try all day to pole vault like somebody else and use their technique and try to lift as much weight as them and sprint as fast as them or whatever. But at the end of the day, man, you have to believe. I think the best vaulters in the world, the best athletes in the world, just have that belief, like we were talking about earlier, in what they do. And like, that was something that I struggled with, because especially with social media now, you go online and it's like you're scrolling through Instagram and it's like, oh dude, that guy jumped this high, and it's like a dagger in your heart. It's like, oh my gosh, they jumped this high, and now I got to jump this high, and they did it on this pole, so now I have to do it on this pole. And it's like, no, dude, if you look at the people who are the best in the world right now, I mean, they believe in the way that they do things. Like Sam, you think Sam thinks he needs to be on a 520? No, he doesn't need to be on a 520. He believes, him and his dad was able to, I think it's his dad was able to instill that into him. Like, hey man, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And you either believe in it and go high, or you can chase your tail and try to be somebody that you're not,
Yeah.
And since he has that belief in himself, he's able to compete and be last year's the best vaulter in the world on a pole that's a foot shorter than everybody else, and a grip that's a foot shorter than everybody else. But it's because he believes in what he does, and his technique, my technique, I didn't necessarily like it that much. But eventually I had to believe in it. And it's like, I got these little things that I don't like. I used to split my leg really bad up top, and I hated it. But eventually I'm like, okay, it's this late in my career. Am I really, if I fix that, is that really going to be the big difference? It's probably not going to be the big difference, So I think that's good for you. I think, and so did Jacob kind of instill that into you, like, hey man, we're going back to what Jeff Coover's good at?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think he like made me stop watching pole vault video and all sorts of stuff like that. And it was just kind of like, it was just back to, getting me back to what I was capable of doing, and instilling in me the idea that if you do what you're capable of doing, you're going to jump pretty high. And I think that using that method, we accomplished some pretty good things. And then, that kind of stuck with me for the rest of the time. And he was the best guy to teach me it, for sure. Or really, he was the best guy to remind me that like the way you do it is good enough to accomplish some good things. You got to go all the way down.
Awesome.
You got to go all the way down that hole, So.
And that's a lesson that he taught you that you'll be able to hold on to that for the rest of your life, and you'll be able to apply that to all different kinds of things, and that's what I tell my athletes that I coach is, these lessons that we're learning in pole vaulting, all of a sudden they're going to pop up in your life later on down the road. And it's like, oh, this is like the exact same thing that I dealt with, during my athletic career. And now I can apply that to business, or I can apply that to coaching or sales, or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. It's an invaluable piece of advice that he gave you, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the end result of that, since we are eventually talking to pole vaulters, is that I was able during those years and up till now, I was able to do some stuff that I can really hang my hat on from short run and from long run, as far as pushing poles. Like, I'll just throw some numbers out. These are like maybe the things that I'm, possibly most proud of. I think the things that I'll remember always in my career were things that happened here at Northern Iowa with nobody else around, and on the South Runway, just like going crazy pole vaulting, trying to freaking get animalistic, Jacob and I used to just scream and yell at each other and just,
I can picture that.
But like from 4 lefts, I jump 520. These are all with bars. From 4 lefts, I jump 520 using a 5 meter 13.6. And then from 5, I jumped 540 with a 13.0. From 6, I jumped 555 with a 510 12.4.
You said from 6 lefts?
That was from 6 lefts, yeah. 555 with a 12.4. From 7, 562 with a 12.0. And then, which actually one time at Britt's Pub Vault, I used an 11.4 from 7 lefts and jumped 550. And then from full run, I never really did 8. From full run, from 18, from 9 lefts, I jumped 568 with that 11.4. And then one time I jumped 560 with a 11.2. So, those are good, crazy pole numbers or whatever, but you could also flip it on its head and be like, dude, you should have jumped higher from all of those runs on all of those poles. But which is a fair argument, but I'm really just trying to point out the fact that what I was able to do and what Jacob helped me to do, and what my next coach is a guy named Anthony Bertoli, and what those guys really encouraged me to do was just go crazy with what you're good at. And that's what I want to tell young vaulters to do now. It's like, whatever you're good at, whatever your strength is, like, go as far as you can in that direction. You know what I mean? Like, if you're good at, if you can push 1.5 feet, off the top of the pole, like, try and push 1 foot and 7 inches, and try and push 1 foot and 8 inches, and then just keep going, and I think that's kind of, it's like all of those numbers are just a testament to the result of being like, okay, let's fully commit to this. Like, let's see how far we can go down this thing.
I think that's why.
Yeah, so hold on really quick.
Go for it.
Really quick. Before, just because I know that like the kids at my club would geek out on the numbers of that. So for those people who don't speak in flex points, is there any way that you can convert the length of the pole to and the weight of the pole instead of
sure,
5,
yeah,
10, 11?
I can just guesstimate. So
right.
We only use flex numbers, but I will tell you that all everything from 4 laps on, everything was above, is weight rating is 205 or higher. And then from 4 laps, so from 4 laps, it was like a 16.5, 205. From 5 was probably a 16.5, 210. From 6 was probably a 16.9, 210. From 7, a 16.9, 215. And then from full run was probably a 16.9, either a 220 or 225, something like that. I don't know if they even keep going. I don't know if there are 225s. Like at some point, I think they just say, why are we writing the weight rating on these things? But all of those poles were 16.5 or 16.9, so 5 meter or 5'10" poles, and everything over 205 weight rating. And
savage, man.
Yeah, that's
absolute savage.
I've heard crazier things. You know, I mean, Steve Hooker jumped 8 from 8 steps from 4 laps, jumped on a 5 meter 12.8, which is, you know, even stiffer than what I jumped on and jumped 560. And
that was a cool jump. I remember.
Yeah, that was a really cool jump. You know what's funny about that? And now I'm going to get off topic. We should do another question soon. But what's funny about that is Mondo just put a video of him jumping a 50 bar from 4 laps, and he was on like a 15.6 pole. But he said he has some. I asked him about that because like I said, I bother everybody. I'm not kidding. I bother everybody until they give me information. And so I asked him about that jump, and I'm like, dude, that was incredible. Like 4 laps and 50. He's like, yeah, but I want to jump 61. I'm like, why? He's like, Hooker jumped 60. I'm like, dude, this was like 3 weeks after he broke the world record, Mondo. And I'm like, dude, you just broke the world record, man. And he was like, he said, I'll never forget this. He said, I want it all.
I want it all. Hey, that's awesome. He's a beast too.
Go ahead, Josh. Savage. I was gonna say I'm gonna ask a question and try to segue into love the pole vault talk, but let's try to get to know Jeff Coover a little bit more. How you guys feel about that?
Yeah. Get to know the Coov Dawg.
So in feel free to, Jake and I have said like pole vault's going to be kind of the thread that runs through this podcast. And if it ends up getting back on that and we're talking flex numbers again here in a couple minutes, we'll try to regroup. Give us a 30-second pitch. Try to keep it 30 seconds as to why everyone should move to Iowa.
Oh, wow. That's an incredible question.
Wow, that is an incredible question. The thing is that I don't know that everybody should move to Iowa. There are probably people that shouldn't. If you want to be part of the coolest, definitely the most fun and the best track culture I've ever been around, and you're a high school or college kid, then you should come to Iowa to be at UNI because it's the best. But besides that, just things I love about Iowa. I love the people. They're amazing. So supportive and friendly and kind and giving and caring and everything else. It's really true. It really is. That Minnesota nice thing, it extends down to Iowa for sure as well. I have a great friend group and all that. And then also, I mean, I own a house here and I'm a track coach. Like that's pretty good reason to live somewhere.
Right. For sure.
So that's definitely one. And then it's a beautiful place, and it's you kind of get a little bit of everything here. There's culture, and there's university, and then it's like we're 5 minutes. Like I live right next to a nature preserve where we can go and hike and walk with our daughter and our dog, and you can be in cornfields in no time, as you know.
Oh, so, yeah.
Yep. A little bit of everything for everyone, for sure. Iowa, I love it here. Like I said, I was like you said, I was born in California, but love it here in Iowa, and love the university, love the track team, love my staff and administrators and all that. So I'm very, very fortunate to be here. And then my wife works in public health. She's business development coordinator for a occupational health clinic. So, and she really likes what she does, except for right now when everything is just going crazy in her world. But, yeah, that's pretty much why. Good place for kids, all that stuff.
I went on a visit to one of my 5 official visits was to University of Northern Iowa, and it was whenever Coach Case was there. Yep. And that was, I really, and there was that guy. Oh man. I went to Finland. with this guy, or I stayed
Yarno
with
or
him in
Andre? Yarno or Andre?
Yarno. Yeah, he
Yarno
was
Nova,
an
yeah.
awesome dude. Yeah, and he showed me a really good time in Helsinki, and that was they were really cool, and like you said, they do have a very, very good culture there. It seemed like
Yeah.
the day that I went, it was cold and they were outside, but they were still jumping like
We,
540s.
oh
You
yeah,
know?
we jumped, man. I wish that was another. I should have kept short run PRs and then PRs by temperature also.
Yeah, right.
Because I mean, if it's 45 or higher, we're outside jumping for the most part in the fall and in the spring. So I've definitely done
Yeah.
full run, like crazy sessions in under 50-degree weather, which you just get used to doing it. And
Do you think that's an advantage sometimes? Because like I go back and forth. Like, okay, if
at
you're
Great
from the
Relays, it is.
Midwest, like it's
True.
like, man, I'm tough. I'm out here training in the cold and this. Actually, because you're from San Diego, so this is a good way to kind of compare the two. I always used to in my head be like, like whenever I get to these meets and it's cold and everybody else is complaining about the cold, it's not going to bother me. So have you ever found that as you know, a superpower kind of being in
Oh,
the Midwest and training out of the Midwest?
dude, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I trained at the Olympic Training Center for a couple of years, and that place, the wind comes out of the west every single day. It was perfect tailwind every day, and I couldn't jump very high. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And came here and started jumping a lot higher. I mean, we get crazy crosswinds, and there's days where it starts with tailwind and finishes the headwind. And obviously, the highest bar I ever made in my life was 571 on the outdoor runway here, right before USA's in 17, and it was about to be one of those crazy thunderstorms. So you just kind of figure out how to deal with inclement weather and crazy conditions and not let it bother you. So I remember that day specifically. That's one of my favorite days of pole vaulting ever. I was out there, just me and Chelsea, me and my wife, and she's not a pole vaulter or anything. And we weren't even married at the time. We were just dating. So she's just taking video, and when I make bars, she actually has a really good eye for pole vaulting. I shouldn't diminish that, but
Right.
She's just a fan of my pole vaulting and has always been so supportive and amazing. And it was just me and her out there. Will always be a really special day for me. And it started awesome, and there was a tailwind, and I decided to put a bar up from full approach, and I think I made like 30 and 45 and 55 or 60. And I made that on a 12.0, and then I had to go, and then the wind started picking up, and I could tell there was a storm starting, and I had to go to 11.7. I was like, I'm going to put the bar at 71 and go to an 11.7 and try and sneak over it before this storm comes in. And it started getting really blustery, and so it was still a tail, but it was kind of crossed up, and I think I bailed once. I took off and bailed, and then I kind of halfway swung up at the bar, and then it started to drizzle. And Chelsea was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want freaking one more. And it hit.
One more jump, baby.
It comes up
Uno
every
mas.
episode.
Uno
One
mas.
more jump. Let's go. I knew it. It was
Oh
we got
God,
the
that was
intro.
not planned. That was not planned. But anyway, I was like, I want one more. And I stood on the back of the runway,
That's awesome.
and I remember that I took a tiny bit more grip, and I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to freaking do it,
Mm-hmm.
And it was blustery, and the temperature started to drop, and there was raindrops started coming down, and I ran down there, and I made it. And on the way down, I screamed, F you. But for that, I was yelling at the bar and the weather and the conditions and the whole situation.
Yeah.
Dang it! I thought we had our intro clip there until that part.
I think I remember just being like yelling that at like the whole situation, just being like,
Uh-huh.
who cares? Like none of it matters. It doesn't, whatever.
Yeah.
F everything, I can, all right, pack the poles up. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that those sorts of sessions, like if it starts raining at the USAs or at the trials, or that year there was a little bit of it. I had a headwind on every jump that I took that year in 2017 in Sacramento, and I was just I ended up jumping like 3 bars and making them all in first attempts, and then going out. But yeah, it's just like you learn that resilience, and you learn to not freak out and to just kind of keep going. So
Right. And I think we've all been in those meets where like, you go to the meet like on, in some warm weather place, and and then it starts like the weather turns or it's a little cold or something like that, and then it's just like run through, run through, run through, run through,
Yeah,
run
man.
through, run through.
Actually, it's funny. Drake Relays Week just happened, and in 16 at Drake Relays, it was like I was super motivated because there was a lot of money on the line.
Yeah.
And I was like not really working very much and whatever. But a lot of the other guys that were there, it started raining. It was 46 or 48 degrees and like cross headwind. And everybody was running through in warm-ups and unmotivated. And I was just like, dude, this is every day. This is just what I do, you know? And
Right.
ended up getting third, and I only lost to Sam and Sean, and that was kind of a cool day. But I remember everybody running through. I'm like, you don't have a plan for this? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
you got to have a pole in there you can grip down a little bit and kind of jog in there and figure out how to get the tip in the box and go, because
Yeah.
Right.
this is you would like. I remember watching all those guys, and those I respect them all, and they're all really good pole vaulters, and they're you know whatever. But I was like, I remember thinking, and it might not have been true or anything. I'm like, you wouldn't make it training in Iowa, man. Like this is
No.
Seriously.
True, man. I
You-
see your videos, and there's times where I'm just like, how in the world was he able to do that? I mean, just your any given Tuesday, it's just like, oh, there's a video of Jeff Coover vaulting like a 560 bar with snow in the shadows in the grass, and it's like, what in the
that
world?
sounds like an urban legend, but I'm gonna allow it.
I thought there was a twister in the background too. On one of them, I swear I saw a tornado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I may be making that up.
let's segue into another question. What is Jeff doing during quarantine, and how do you stay in shape and not lose your mental edge?
Ooh.
It's a good question. Yeah, like I said, I try and have my hour a day where I do. It sometimes ends up being more like 45 minutes, depending on the baby's nap or whatever. But I'm fortunate to have a hill nearby, and I have my weight room garage weight room, I should say. And our track is public, so every once in a while I can get out there and sprint a little bit. And I try and go at times when, luckily, I haven't had any issues. Like there's been nobody out there. It's still open, but there's been like almost nobody out there, which is
As long
nice.
as you're not slipping on the ice.
Right, as long as I'm
Yeah.
not slipping on the ice while there's a heat wave going on. But you know, I just try and I try and do one. I keep it pretty normal. Whether I have to run hills or I can actually get to the track, I try and sprint or lift every day, one or the other. So I've kind of pivoted the last couple of years into either sprinting or lifting or jumping, but choosing one each day, and then obviously plugging in rest days as well. I have a kind of a unique style of training. I don't run anything over 90 meters. That's the furthest that I go ever anymore. I do a lot of 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s, 80s sprints. And then in the weight room, I just, you know, you see me, I go crazy. I try and,
Go
you know,
ham, baby.
it's just what I enjoy doing. So
Throw some numbers out there. Throw some
Deep
numbers.
squat.
Throw some numbers out there.
nothing too crazy, man. Like I've squatted 350, but I squat on like, some may say ass to ankles. I don't know. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
you're
he
going.
did it.
I thought it was A word to grass.
Oh yeah, that too.
That's
as deep as I can go. And then, you know, I've cleaned 140 kilos, which is 3 something. And then I've snatched.
Gosh, from the floor?
From the floor.
You clean.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what it is. 140 kilos is the best. Actually, I cleaned 300 like 2 weeks ago. So that was actually really good number. And then
It's
I've
that
snatched.
dad strength.
Yeah, it is. And then I've snatched 110 kilos. So, which is 245 from the floor also. And I snatched 100 kilos like 10 days ago. So
Yeah.
That's crazy. dude.
Unwavering strength.
yeah.
Jeff
I mean,
Coover.
I feel like you're like doing a good job maintaining like your status as like a cool dad. Like,
Oh man.
like I
Thanks.
mean, you can pole vault, 550. You got a dad PR of 552. You're snatching this. You're cleaning this. You're, like the other day, I feel like I'm slowly slipping into like turn into like a donkey dad or something,
Don't do
man.
that.
Like,
Don't do that to yourself.
I don't know, man. I was mowing the lawn the other day and yesterday, and like there's this teenage girl walking by with her AirPods, and just walks by, and I say hi to everybody, not being creepy or anything. All I said was, hey, how's it going? And she looked at me like I was just like, don't look at me, you donkey dad. What are you saying? What are you saying hi to me for? Why don't you go keep on mowing your lawn, donkey dad? Loser. It might be because I had on running shorts and barefoot shoes.
Yeah.
That might have.
I was gonna say maybe he also had a LaCroix and his AirPods in, dancing around a little bit like he usually is. Maybe that might have had something to do with it.
I was like, dude, all I said was hi. Legitimately, all I said, hey, how's it going? And then just turned my mower around and going on back. And
so you're saying if you were in your garage with the garage door open,
banging weights around, putting 250 or 70 or
maybe
whatever
the neighbors would
100%.
probably end up making their way to your driveway and trying to spark a conversation.
My garage gym, like I clean and snatch facing out, like toward the garage door, and I usually try and keep the garage door open because it's just like a little airflow or whatever. It looks perfectly up my driveway into my neighbor across the street living room, and she does the same thing. She leaves the door open, and I'm always like, man, she's just standing there like watching, like right straight down,
just staring.
It's a way for you to establish dominance in your neighborhood.
You know what's funny? I have my neighbor Jay, who's amazing, and they have a 9-year-old boy, and I put my garage gym in, and I was doing this Squattober thing, right? So I was squatting every single day, and there was this company that was making a plan it was just for fun. My daughter had just been born. I wasn't really training yet for the year, so I just was going to squat every day and see if I could get my max up a little bit. And that's actually at the end of that is when I squatted 350, and which I could have done more, but the max day I made the mistake of I had done the whole 30 days, and then with nobody there, just by myself in my garage. And there were some sketchy, like heavy triples and quads and stuff that were pretty hard. And I made the mistake my max day of telling my wife beforehand, like, oh man, I'm really excited. Like today's max day in the squat. And she's like, okay, who's coming to spot you? And I'm like, nah, I can bail. Like, it's not a big deal. If I miss it, I can. And she's like, absolutely not. Like, I will not let you go out there and squat by yourself. I just won't let you do it if you're gonna max out. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to ask my neighbor Jay, who had never been. We're buddies, but we don't live together or anything. But I was like, hey man, I'm doing this like squat max thing. Like, can you just come over so that Chelsea will let me do it? You don't really have to do anything. Like, I'll let you know when there's like 300 on the bar, and I was gonna go like 300, 330, and I was actually gonna be done at 330. Because 310 was my PR, and I was going to be done at 3:30. And so I did. So I call him over, and he came in the garage, and there was 300 on the bar, and he just looked at the bar, and he goes, he's like, "Are you going to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "That could kill you, man." And I'm like, "Oh, that's exactly the mentality that I want out of my spotter going into
little confidence right before you take it down."
So did he have to get up? Like get in there, He
actually didn't. He stood behind me. He's not even like in the video. Like it was not like if it went bad, it was going to go just as bad as it would have.
Right. Maybe even worse.
But honestly, it helps because I made 300, and he was like, "Hey, that didn't look that bad. Like that wasn't scary." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then I put 330 on, and I made it, and it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy, but I was like, that's good. Like I got my PR. I'm a dad. Like this is. Mm-hmm. That's good. And I turned around, and I got out from under the bar, and I turned around, and he's like, you got to put more on. And I was like, oh, hell yeah.
I like Jay, man.
I want Jay with me in the weight room, man.
He's like, dude, that was too easy, man. Like he had witnessed previously, he had only ever witnessed one max looking rep in the squat in his life, and it was the 300 that I had done 5 minutes before.
He had no idea what you were trying to accomplish.
Based on my experience, you need to put more weight on the bar and keep going.
Oh
So
my
I paid
gosh.
$350, and then I was like, dude, thanks for making me do that. That was great. So
I thought you were gonna say that you were gonna have to like show him how to get up in there and get get under you and stuff.
I told him, I was like, dude, if it starts like looking like it's gonna go bad, I need like 30
Push me in the back of the head that way and get out of the way. That is
Dude, that's
hilarious.
hilarious. I see. I could picture you just like, I mean, if I was throwing weight around like that in my garage, and I mean, I would be slamming that down too. You got bumpers, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would just wait until somebody was walking by on the sidewalk, snatch that 250 or whatever over my head, slam it on the ground, and just point at them. Just be like, hey, just so you understand, I am in charge around here. Okay.
Whenever people walk on the sidewalk, the hair kind of stands up on the back of their neck just because they know Jake lives in there.
Their kids walk by and their parents tell them to close their eyes. Hey, close your eyes. Close your eyes, kids. Go fast,
quick.
fast.
We need to get past this house as quick as possible because we're just not sure what's going to happen.
Dude, I love it, man.
But it's not perfect. You know, my garage is like not perfect setup, and where I pole vault the South Runway and UNI and all of it's not perfect. And I think that's kind of the situation that I embrace the most, and getting away from pole vaulting and training and jumping. You know, we all have an affinity for music, and probably one of my favorite musicians, or maybe my favorite, is Jack White from the White Stripes. And they had a documentary, and he was explaining their stage setup, and this really applies to how I approach life and training and everything. And he was saying, you know, if I'm playing, he has a keyboard by the drum set, and then he has an organ over by the front of the stage. And he was saying, you know, if I have a song, the way I set up the stage, he said, if I have a song where I want to be playing the keyboard and then I want to switch and play the organ, and you know, the time between those two is about the time it takes me to go about 3 steps. Then I put the organ 4 steps away.
Right.
He's like, I just want it to not quite work. Like I want it to be harder than it needs to be, to give me that challenge and that feeling of like, I have something I need to overcome here. And kind of that grind mentality of just like, you know, I could put the organ 3 steps away and I have 3 steps worth of time to get there, but instead I'm going to put it a little too far so that it's not perfect, so that I gotta
I love that. That's what I think. Like I said, whenever I think of Jeff Coover, it's like the dude who vaults high, but he vaults high in some pretty interesting ways, man. This Iowa, the crosswinds, the craziness of that. Go for it, Jake.
I was gonna say before, because I had no idea that you were a Jack White fan.
Yeah,
and
I'm a big Jack
the documentary
White fan as well.
that you're talking about is, what was it, like Great White Northern Lights?
Northern Lights, yeah.
Yeah, and
he makes that guitar.
Yeah, at the beginning he makes that guitar. I mean, he's outstanding. He was talking about how it's like, and he's performing, like you were saying, in front of these thousands and thousands of people, and he, like, they don't even know that he's doing that. Like, he's doing that is just for him. It's because it's almost like an athletic performance as much as it is like a musical performance, and like a test of his brain and a test of his you know, ability to remember and to move. And it's like a whole performance that he's doing for himself that nobody even knows about watching the normal performance. They're fascinating.
No set list, and really old, cheap, kind of crappy guitars, and old amps that, you know, he self admits like everything might break halfway through the set, you know, and then we figure it out. Then I got to play all the songs on the organ, or I got to play all the songs on the piano, or I'll just sing and she'll just play drums. Like that's kind of always been how I've tried to approach pole vaulting and training in life, is just like, let's just kind of make it imperfect and be fine with it and just go from there.
So are you more a fan of the White Stripes or Jack White? You know, because like he's like solo. Like,
I like them both. I like them both for sure. And I would say that the White Stripes records are always definitely the ones that have intrigued me the most, like those are the records that I can go back and listen to over and over and over again and kind of hear something new every time.
Right.
Just like, I can learn something from those records of, the Distill album and the Elephant album and the self-titled, like those albums are just, there's just so much in them, and there's only two people, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of how it's, and I love that. I love the simplicity. I like analog things and mechanical things and things that are very simple but are complex in their simplicity. And I think that's why the style of training that I use works, is because, like I don't know how many times I've gone out and run 4 sets of 10, 20, 30 in my career. I did it yesterday. So many times. And every
Hold on.
single time.
Say it again. What is that?
4 sets of a 10 meter run, a 20 meter run, a 30 meter run. So just an basic acceleration session with no pole or anything, just
from a stop, from
a hanging start. And I always take data on everything. I have like timers and stuff, but I've done that particular workout probably at least once a week for the last 6 or 8 years. And every time that I go out and do it, I learn something, and I try and do something different. And I try and do something new, and I think that's kind of just like, that's, it's, I don't know if that's similar to what we're talking about with the white stripes, but I feel in my core, I feel like it is. I feel like it's that ability to have, a complexity around simplicity. That makes
so you had mentioned the simplicity of it. So moving on, we were talking about this before the podcast. So I think there has to be a balance. Obviously, technology is going insane right now. So there are some things, like even you had mentioned, and Josh would agree with this, that like our training since we were like younger has changed so much, man. Like we used to do things back in the day that we would never think about doing now. And then, so how do you blend those two things? And specifically, we were talking about our self-quantification devices here. So I've got my Aura Ring right here, and then Jeff's got his Whoop strap, which I've messed around with the Whoop strap. And then Josh has got the Garmin. He's doing his distance stuff, so the heart rate's important on that. But so how you integrate something like the Whoop strap into that like simple stuff without getting overrun by the numbers and not letting the data drive you nuts?
Yeah, that's a super good question, because I really have both things. Like I said, I put laser timers on my runs every single time I go to the track and run. Like I almost don't do any sprints or runs anymore without having them timed by a fully automatic system. I have one that's really easy to set up and easy to use, made by a company called Arena Gear, that they're kind of really just now trying to do some track and field stuff. And it's really good and simple, and I love it. And I also have the Whoop strap, which gives a ton of data. And I kind of use all of that data more as I try not to let it like drive too much of what I do. And I instead more use it as a screening tool, which I guess you can kind of say they're one and the same. But the thing that I like the best about the Whoop strap is the heart rate variability data. So when you're asleep, it basically, to put it simply, it measures how much your heart rate changes from beat to beat during your last sleep cycle, basically. So what you don't want is, as you breathe in and out, your heart rate to be going very rhythmic. You don't really want that. If you want your parasympathetic nervous system to be firing on all cylinders, you want a little bit of variability. And so you want that when you take a nice big breath in, everything slows down, and when everything speeds up. And then when you breathe out, your heart rate slows down a little bit. So you want a little bit of that.
Interesting.
And that shows like it's like you're whenever you're a person and you're loose and you feel good, like you're just like, nah, whatever. But when you're stressed out, you're like boom, 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 like you're really like robotic, like. And so like if your heart is under a lot of stress, like if you're sick or you're overtrained, then your heart is like on survival mode, like, okay, we have to do this every beat, at the exact right time. But when you're not stressed, it's like loosey goosey, like I'll beat now.
Yeah.
I'll beat now.
And it responds to the, changes in blood oxygen, all that. So basically it's the heart rate variability is a indicator of your nervous system's readiness to do something demanding. So what I've found, which is the cool thing about the Whoop strap, what I've learned more than anything is that times when based on my theory and my training theory and the things that I've learned from my mentors and from my coaches, a guy named Dan Path has helped with my training for many, 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 many years and has guided me toward the system that I use. Based on everything that I've learned and known, when I put the Whoop strap on, it basically confirmed everything. That's kind of the best that I can say. Like when I let's say I do a jump session and then and general strength, and then the next day I do an acceleration session and a lift, the expectation is that I'm going to be pretty smoked after those 2 days. And if I wake up on that, when I wake up on that third day and I look at my sleep data, it's like, dude, your nervous system's pretty shot. Time for a recovery day. So the Whoop has been a really good confirmation type of marker for me, I guess. And it's pretty much like just showing me that the things that I'm expecting are happening are probably happening. The interesting part has been, for me, alcohol. So I haven't had any alcohol for a really long time since getting the Whoop, because I realized that was just having a beer or two in the evenings was totally ruining my sleep. And even if I had 2 rest days, if I had 2 beers before bed, my heart rate variability would just be shot, and my nervous system was shot.
I see similar things on my Aura ring. Like if I were to have, an alcoholic drink at night, also with my heart rate, like it'll be, it won't drop until like 2 or 3 in the morning.
You're just trying to metabolize that alcohol for sure.
Yeah, you're processing that, and then that obviously is going to really affect your sleep, which in turn really affects your,
recovery.
Whenever I got to wake up and mow the lawn, because I need to be ready to go to be able to mow the lawn. Similar to you doing your power cleans and things
pretty
like
much
that.
Same exact thing. I've got another question to try to veer us in another direction around, I guess your life in general. If your life was a book, what would its title be?
Wow, that's
deep. That means that's a couple words to just basically sum up the story of Jeff Coover.
Man, I don't know. Gosh, I wish I would have had some.
I know. I'm sorry.
Warning on that one.
Coov Dawg, maybe?
Coov Dawg, something with Coov Dawg in it. DAWG, DAWG dog.
I don't know. I would say something like living and learning, or
that's a good one.
Something like that. That's just always been my thing. It's just like my 2 things that have been consistent through my whole life, especially since, I've been in college and graduated, have been trying to live as much as I can. So when I was pole vaulting, I was trying to travel as much as I could and jump, and is, never say, like, my agent would basically be like, hey, I got a meeting, and I'd be like, yeah, get the flight. Like, let's go, let's do it. So, and then whenever I was around people that I that I could learn from, I was just picking their brains and trying to learn as much as I could. And I continue to do that. I have phone calls with Dan, my mentor, my coaching mentor, all the time. And it's just an hour of me asking questions. So let's go with that. That's the first thing that came to me.
Living and learning with Coov. There we go.
Coov, man.
Another one. Do you mind if I, just because there were so many that came in, I feel like we should rifle through some of these.
Absolutely.
What job would you be terrible at?
Anything like type A, like being an accountant or something. That's just would be really difficult.
Are you the guy who's got to get up and, from his desk and go walk around a little bit, say hi to some people, have some conversations?
Yes. That's why this is so good for me, because I can, my boss, Dave Paulson here at UNI, our head coach, is amazing at letting me go and train a little bit during the day. And I need that. That's what keeps me sane.
For sure.
I'm sorry to Dave Paulson, but the next question is, what's the biggest complaint about your job? Mr. Paulson, I'm
It
sorry.
wouldn't. It would certainly never have anything to do with Dave Paulson. That's for sure. That would be the biggest. The biggest joy.
You can relate it to NCAA. You can relate it to anything.
Biggest complaint of my job.
Not having a track season, maybe.
Not having a track season right now is high on the list. I would just say, oh man, the hardest part, I wouldn't say this is a complaint because I love everything about my job. I love being a track coach. It's really amazing. The hardest part is just having to travel and be away from my family. And we're really lucky to not have to do it a ton. We stay pretty regional and all that, but that's definitely the most difficult part is having to travel and be away a few weekends out of the year, even just a couple weekends out of the year. So
for sure.
I can see that.
Couple more. All-time favorite movie.
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, baby. That's a good one, man. You got a favorite scene?
Man, they're all perfect.
I know they are really good.
I could try and pick like a non-famous one. I think probably the one that sticks out always to me when I think about that film is when they're in the diner, the 50s diner.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the overdose scene, but before that, where they're, he's just supposed to be taking her out, his boss's wife basically, so that she's not holed up at home and bored. And he's just supposed to be taking her to get dinner. And he's all stressed because, he thinks that his boss killed the last guy that tried to do this. And where they're sitting at dinner and trying to kind of figure out what each other are all about. I think that's probably that conversation in that scene, which is very Quentin Tarantino-esque, it's just good kind
really
of
good
American cinematography to me. And that whole scene, I think, is where they're sitting in the booth, and they make their orders and they get the $5 milkshake and, she goes off to powder her nose, as she says. And yeah,
and then the dance scene too. I love
the dance scene, and he's just so cool, and
he is, man.
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite.
That's sweet.
Heck yeah.
So this last question, I think will give you enough to talk about to kind of segue into the final parts of this. What lessons have pole vaulting taught you, and how is that translating to your life and your future?
Oh gosh, I think pole vaulting has taught me like every lesson that I've probably learned in my life for the most part. I mean, in one way or another, it's like I've learned first and foremost how to apply myself completely to something and get something out of it. I think that's kind of obviously the first thing is just how to follow my dreams and my passions and leave nothing on the table. And the results of that being that I really still don't feel like I was, I could have been a better pole vaulter. I could have pole vaulted higher. I could have jumped, whatever. I could have, accomplished more or whatever, but I don't know that I could have tried any harder. So, and I had amazing experiences along the way and got to travel a ton and learn a lot and meet a lot of really cool people. And it gave me so much. And, that's number one. And number two is just, how to prioritize things in your life, and how to have balance, I guess I should say, how to have balance. Because, I met my wife just through a friend, and which had almost nothing to do with track and field. Actually, my friend was a track guy, but he was dating a girl at the time that he just kind of knew somehow. And then her friend was Chelsea, and Chelsea has nothing to do with track or anything. And so it's always been that our relationship is, started outside of the track and field world, and I kind of brought her into it. But I learned balance in that through that relationship, and how to not sacrifice our relationship for being at the track more than I needed to be. So I definitely made mistakes in the past of spending too much time on the road traveling and competing, or just being being out and training on days that I didn't need to and stuff like that. And I think I learned that some things in life are a lot more important than going out and running or whatever. So learn balance.
Powerful. That's pretty powerful, man. That was really, it's amazing. Yeah. I think that's something that these kids, but almost more these elites, is a good lesson. You know, it's not the end of the world, man. It's not the end of the world. And that balance piece is really probably the most difficult part of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think it's the most important. I still think I can jump high. Like I still have all my markers are really good, and my physical markers and everything like that, even with the style of training that me and Dan have kind of figured out is the best way for me right now. All my speed data is like really, really good, and strength numbers are good and all that. And I've done that with a lot more life balance than I had in 2015, 2016 when I was, really, trying to just go crazy. And it's a lot more fun now. It's a lot more fun. I'm enjoying, I enjoyed it back then. I enjoyed training and competing and all that, but I felt a lot more pressure, because I was putting so much into it. And now it's like, I've never enjoyed my life more than I'm enjoying it right now. And I think that's because of that coming around and learning that balance. So
that's sweet, man. Well, we super, super appreciate you coming on here. I learned a lot. I'm sure Jake learned a lot. Jeff Coover's the guy that, when you walk in front of his house and he's squatting 350, the hair stands up on the back of the neck. He's one of those guys. But in all honesty, you're always somebody that I know you came up here in Minnesota and met up for a meet.
Dude, you know what's funny? I wanted to actually tell that story.
So go for it.
Let's get it, man.
Well, dude, wait, let me share one little thing about that. I was planning on jumping that day if I could get on. Yes, I know. But if I could get on the smallest pole in your bag. And unfortunately, it was the biggest pole I'd ever been on. And I had taken about a year and a half off vaulting. So then I went into that shed and grabbed like a 12-foot pole and vaulted from like 1 or 2 lefts or something. I don't know. Go for it. Sorry. I just figured I'd share that.
It's funny because that was, first of all, I have the fortune to have jumped with all 3 Winder brothers, which I love that so much. Like,
that's cool.
I came up with Jake, and then I jumped a little bit with Josh, and then now I've done a bunch of meets with Luke. So it's pretty cool. I've just been jumping for a long time, but you guys have always been around. It's the best thing. But it's funny that Minnesota meet was like another one of my strangely one of my favorite meets that I think about all the time that I really loved. And it's because, so like, if you rewind like 2 weeks before that was this session in the rain where I jumped 71. Mm-hmm. And so then I'm like, I'm ready to freaking go. And I went to Sacramento and I thought I was going to make that world team. And I just didn't, I got a bunch of headwinds and it was difficult. And I kind of got stuck between poles, and I made 50 or 55 on a first. And then, okay, so I don't remember what I made. Do you remember what I made in Minnesota? I think it was 55, 56.
It was a good jump. Yeah, it was 55 or 56 or something. On a high school runway.
Right. So I think I jumped 55 at USA's on a first attempt, and then I didn't make the next bar, and I came home on Monday. So I think we jumped on Saturday or Sunday. I came home on Monday. I flew home on Monday because that was the cheapest flight, and got home late, and then Tuesday I kind of sat around the house, and then somebody told me about this meet in Minnesota on Wednesday, and it was at some high school, and I was like, man, I just freaking want to jump. Like, I was pissed about USA's because I was in good shape and I didn't feel like I did very well, and I was like, and I had been pushing big poles and high grips and just kind of trying to maximize everything, and I was like, I just want to go pole vault. And I told Chelsea, and she was working full time. I think she was just newly full-time at the job that she has now. And I told Chelsea, I was like, I think I'm going to go up there tomorrow and just jump at this all-comers meet. And she's like, I'm coming with you. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. So I reached out to Josh, and I was like, do you know anything about this setup? He said, I think it's okay. And I emailed the meet director, and he was like, yeah, I don't know about jumping 18 feet, but maybe it'll be okay. And so, but I was like, screw it. Like, if I have to jump from shore run, I'll do that. So then I showed up. It's actually a really cool setup there.
It is.
But it was just a super low key little all comers meet in Minnesota. Josh jumped from like two lefts or something. It was fun. And I remember that I was like, I'm just going to make bars. I was going to hold low on small poles. And I made a couple heights and I was feeling good. And then I jumped 1 centimeter higher than I jumped at USA's. I remember I was like, I'm going to just try and jump. So I jumped 56 and on a 12-0. On a 12-0, and then I went and tried to jump 65 on an 11-7, and it was close. And it was like dusk at a high school. You know, it was just me, you, Josh, me, you, and Chelsea. And those are the only people that I knew there. And at a high school meet at dusk in Minnesota on a Wednesday. And I was just like,
another one of those things that people don't understand what they witness. Like, to me, I walked away from that, and I remember texting Jake and Luke and my dad a couple pictures I had taken of you, and I was just like,
those are great pictures.
This was unreal. Jeff Coover just rolled up and vaulted 556 and had shots at 565, like on a high school runway, getting off traveling, and I just can't really put into words how impressive that was, because people don't understand the amount of commitment it takes to hop in a car and drive 2 hours and warm up and throw it up that high and vault on these big sticks. It's just like all these 13-year-olds, like, you know, clapping down the runway, not really realizing how impressive that actually is.
That was, I remember getting that and getting that text and looking at the video and being like, dude, that solidifies my position as a donkey dad.
Oh my God. Well, I just remember being on the back of the runway at 565 with 11.7 on my hand. And I was like, this is a high school. Like, why am I at a high school?
How amazing of a high school is that, though? That really is like the best high school setup in all of Minnesota.
Yeah, it was a truly,
it's like a 200-foot vault runway.
Yeah, dude, it was so long. Like, I was worried about the length of the runway, and Josh was like, dude, don't worry about that. This place is unbelievable. We rolled in and drove past like 6 soccer fields. I was like, what is this?
It's the bee's knees.
What is
when
it?
It comes to it. It's East Ridge High School in Woodbury, Minnesota. Shout out to that coach too. I rolled up and I remember I grabbed Jeff's, like, yeah, you know, I got, you know, I think it was like a 15.6 or 16, like 200 as like my warm up pole, if you want to vault on that. And I was like, yeah, no, let's throw that back in the bag. And I went up to the official. I was just like, hey, you know, you look like you're the coach here because your polo says East Ridge. You got anything for me? And he took me in the back of that shed and had, I don't know, like a 13.6 pole. But speaking of the love, like, you know, love and pole vaulting and being around it, I just wanted to vault just like you did that day. I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Give me that pole. I'll vault from like 2 or 3 lefts, vault like 12 or 13 feet and just get out of here, you know, have a good time.
Yeah, that was a really, really fun day. I was like, that one will always stay with me for some reason.
Beautiful night too. That was
perfect evening. It's like 80 degrees. I was just like,
man, maybe that, great. I mean, who knows, man, they're still holding out on these, some of these USATF meets in Minnesota. I saw one on the calendar still. That's one of the ones in later July. I don't know if they're trying to hold out.
Are you going to be able to jump this year or what's going on?
Nobody really knows. I mean, it's just like anything else. Nobody really knows.
I called USATF the other day and just like kind of was like, hey, are you guys like sanctioning meets this summer? Like, can we get a sanction, you know, or what? And they were like, yeah, like as of now, I like they're going to provide insurance to clubs still, which is good. During this time, but then the sanctioning was kind of like, well, we don't really know and blah, blah, blah. And cause like for a lot of people, it would be really, really nice to, if they are like, so rumor has it, and I'm sure you probably have more insider information than me, but rumor has it that like supposedly maybe they're going to try to push a US championships into like September or something like that. And then, but the problem is like, is that going to be like an invite only, or is that like, or are you going to have meets starting in July or what?
Gosh, I have no idea. Nobody really knows. Nobody has any answers. My intuition, my gut says that they probably will just not do it. But
Right.
Yeah, nope. There's definitely not any information getting passed around publicly to us. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
it stinks, man. It's really tough because, you know, I don't know. We do pole vault for the love of pole vaulting for sure. And this goes across all sports. You know, we do it because we love to do it, but man, it would, just me speaking personally, it would be hard for me to continue to have that fire if I don't have like, because I like to have periodized training leading up to something, you
Yeah.
know, and like for me right now, I'd be like, okay, so am I like in what phase am I in? You know,
Yeah.
like, do I need to be ready to jump in 2 weeks, or do
Yeah.
I need to be doing base training stuff for September?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, for me, right. I mean, my training is just not that much different as throughout the year. So it's pretty easy for me. I just am trying to get a little bit faster and get a little bit stronger.
Just stay in shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't really know. But I'm like motivated by just going and training or just going and jumping. You know, like if they open up, like, okay, you guys can go out and pole vault, like that motivates me enough. Like just go out and have somebody come out there with me and take video and hang out and have
For
me
sure, man.
a
Well, you
demo.
gotta, we talked about it. You got to come through the club, man. This is
Dude,
the only issue
I'm
though.
coming.
Well, this is the issue is, so I actually have wanted to have somebody like Luke. Luke tests the limits sometimes. He jumps at North Central, but then he jumps at the club sometimes. Um, we have 120 feet of runway backed up to the window. So obviously you're not gonna be able to run your full, but we have a 23-foot clearance height.
Perfect.
Well, I don't know. Is it?
I don't know
Is it?
either. Let's find out.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
how high can somebody jump with a 23-foot clearance height? Like, we put it up to 19, and we were like we put the bar up to 19, and we were like, I don't know.
Well, dude,
Maybe.
I'm not jumping 19 feet from 100.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just saying. Like, because like my end game is to be able to get it to where, like, as far as my club goes, like my end game is to get it to where we can house, you know, some sort of elite development program, you know, like where we can have a facility that, you know, athletes can come and we can coach them, and not only can we coach them and help them to, you know, get to that next level in elite pole vaulting, but then also provide them some sort of employment, you know, coaching our kids and making money. And, you know, because that's a super hard thing to do at post collegiately
Yeah.
is to make money, you know. So you come, you have a place to train, you can make money. You know, we're located in an area in Chicagoland that, you know, it would be really easy to get a part-time job. And I just feel like it would be a good home base for some elite pole vaulters. But the issue is just like, I want them to be able to run their full approach, which women would be totally fine, I think, with 120 feet, maybe, I don't know. And then the clearance height wouldn't be an issue. But then for the men, it's like Mondo's getting hung up in those bad boys. Like
Yeah,
Mondo's getting hung up in the rafters.
for sure. Wait, is the runway a foot off the ground?
No, it's like this high off the ground, maybe
Okay,
like
so that's box.
4 inches off the ground. We had to cut the box. We had to cut a hole for the box.
Okay, cool, dude. You're fine. I think you could jump. I mean, think about those. Think about the bar clearance camps. You know, like how high are their bodies really above the bar?
Hold on,
True.
the bar clearance, the what? Oh, the bar
Camera.
clearance cams. Yeah,
Yeah, like
cameras.
camera when you're like looking down the crossbar and you're watching somebody go over it
True.
on replay. It's like their body, the the highest point their body ever goes is not a foot over the highest bar they clear.
That's
You know
true.
what I mean?
Right.
I
I guess I
okay
just
with a 560, 570 at least bar.
let's
Yeah,
just say 580 so we can entice some people to come train.
Dude,
you.
I think that if you have 23 feet and the runway is only 4 feet off the ground or 4 inches off the ground, I think that you could jump 90 feet and be comfortable.
Yeah, that's what I would hope. I think, you know, and eventually, like, this is not our end game. Like, this facility is not our end game. Eventually, I want to, you know, get a place where we can have an indoor and an outdoor runway.
Yeah.
But, you know, that takes time. And right now, you know, we're just fighting as a small business owner, just grinding, fighting, trying to, you know, get through this time, but I'm always, thinking ahead and things like that. But anyway, so I think it would be interesting to get some elite vaulters over there, like you and Luke and be like, hey, let's see if you guys can go 7, or I don't know what you could go with 120 and a step back. I don't know, 6, 7.
I don't really do
then,
16, so yeah, it would be 14. It would be 7 laps, but I would come do it for sure. And
and just
max it out, max out rise.
You're not going that fast up there. You're just going to bump it a little bit.
Yeah, right?
Feet get hung up and drop down into the box. Not a big deal.
Well, that's not ideal.
Let's not talk about that. Oh,
well,
man. All right.
Let's wrap it up. Jeff
Yeah,
Coover,
we could talk forever.
I know. This might be our longest one. But Jeff Coover, thank you so much for coming on. Super, super grateful to have another elite mindset on here to take us through your life, take us through your training, give us some optimistic outlook on being a dad, a family man, and still being able to train. Thanks again. Jake, do you have anything to add?
No, you're an awesome dude. You're an awesome dude. You've always been an awesome dude. And at the end of the day, I think that's why people like you, man, is you're cool. You're fun to talk to. You're insightful. You're smart. Is there anything that you want to say to the people?
Definitely meant to say this earlier, but thank you guys for doing this podcast in general, first of all. I mean, it's we need more content like this, I think. And you guys are good voices for it, for sure. And I know you're going to get a bunch of cool guests and everyone's going to get fired up on this. The other thing that I didn't mention, if anyone's still listening, is that Jake did beat me at that USA Indoors that we keep referencing in 2013.
Oh, yes.
So
maybe I'm not as big of a donkey dad as I thought.
I think that was important information that didn't get out there. We both jumped 55, but I had misses and he was squeaky clean. So
that was cool, man. That was a fun meet. But
yeah,
of course,
you got second and I got third, I think, right?
Yeah, and then Jordan
did like
went over sideways over 560. I was like, "Are you kidding?" I was in the lead too. And I love.
He made it on the third, huh?
He made it on the third jump, and my wife comes down to the stands and was like, "I think you're in second." And I was like, "Holy cow, this is his last attempt." And then he went over completely sideways and banged the bar, and it stayed up. I love Jordan; he's an awesome dude. But I was like, oh no!
Yeah,
but he got to win it, and he earned it. I didn't even care. I was like, I can't believe I just got second at this thing.
Well, just like Jeff Coover, to end it on a humble note, letting Jake get his victory, and I appreciate you, Jeff. We'll wrap it up though. We got episode 4 of the One More Jump podcast with Jeff Coover, and that's the wrap.